March the 24th at 5 o'clock. Do we have an invocation or would you stand for the pledge? No invocation?
Moment of silence or either.
Yes.
Moment of silence?
Be fine.
Okay. We'll have a moment of silence followed by the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Miss Angela? Here?
Vice Chair James. Here. Member Emrys.
Here.
Member Jones.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
All right. And now entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda with the addition of item number 3, the facade grant application we received.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, agenda's accepted and we'll have a motion to approve the minutes from February 17th, 2022 CRA meeting.
Approve the CRA minutes for February 17th, 2022.
Second.
And properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, approve the minutes 5-0. And our first business item, number 1, Mr. Sutton, presentation of the CRA annual report for 2020-2021.
Good afternoon, early good evening. I like this new 5 o'clock meeting we have here. In your packet, you'll see the annual report, which has the new logo on it. It should be in your packet right here. It looks like that's the front of it. Of course, each year the state requires special districts, which CRA is one of them, to file several annual reports, from a budget to an audit to Department of Economic Opportunity. There we go. Reports. And this is what I title a performance report. It kind of gives us it's like a science fair billboard that shows you what we've done throughout the year. This is the second set of reports I've completed for the city. The first set was done as I began the job and finished the last year of fiscal year 19 to 20. The first 6 pages of this report, I'm not going to go through them too much. They are factual information. It's background about the CRA. It has board member information. It has a message from the executive director, and it has maps of the CRA district is what the first 6 pages are. The legal purpose of the CRA, things of that nature. Those are easily readable for anybody at any time. As we all aware, these past couple of years have been very hard and slow due to the pandemic that we've all encountered. During this time, CR activity was slowed due to local businesses being slowed down, a variety of reasons, just financial, whatever it might be. First quarter of fiscal year 2020 began with Mr. Joel leaving and Ashley coming on board. That was a big change for all of us. Ashley got immediately thrown into the boat. When December, she'd been here roughly a month. Her first day was November 30th, and I believe December 8th. Myself, Chair Ambrose at the time, and Ashley went before the county commission. At that time, we presented our revamped plan to the Board of County Commissioners. They liked what we had to say, and at that time, they more or less took us off probation. We had been on probation for some issues in the past, and they had one requirement for us, and that was to come back the following year, which was 2021, and present a plan to them of how we were going to move forward for the next 10 years. Page 7 of this report begins with the Facade Grant program that we are covering. Again, it was slow for everybody coming out of the pandemic. This year, we issued 2 Facade Grants during this past fiscal year. One of them was to Clubhouse Athletics right across the street for new paint and awning repair. And the second one was to Kelly Barber. It was approved during the last fiscal year, but it was not completed till this fiscal year. He did come back and submit, as the board requested, individual applications for that. But for this report, I summed it up as Two Finger Properties, which is a Kelly Barber property for his ownings there. Also, and you can go through and you can see the pictures. I included the big changes that Kelly made on the next few pages through the report. As I mentioned earlier, the approval and completion of the strategic plan was probably the greatest accomplishment we had this past fiscal year. The strategic plan is highlighted in the annual report with the different themes that were mentioned throughout. I just highlighted and took those from the strategic plan to put them in our report. The board last year approved this strategic plan wholeheartedly. We then took it to the Board of County Commissioners. This was the last thing they requested from us. When this plan was presented to them, they wholeheartedly approved it also. At that time, last September, we fulfilled all obligations Alachua County requested of us. And so we are now free within the statutory requirements to do as we need to do as a CRA. We don't have any financial obligations to the county anymore, any repayment of funds to the CRA from the city. All that's been completed. Next thing that we did, and I want to recognize someone, Kevin Mangum was a big help on the next couple of projects we completed. We did a billboard through grant funding with the Alachua County Tourism Development Council. They funded 75% of the billboard, of which we still are receiving funding for, and it will be up on I-75 southbound, mile marker 440 through November. So it will be all this year. Hopefully, tourism in Florida keeps coming back the way it has been. But Kevin was a big part of helping create that billboard. Kevin also did a tremendous job in creating our website. I had this crazy idea. We need a tourism marketing website to promote High Springs. Kevin was able to find a website address, URL, whatever it's called, visit highspringsfl.com. It was available, so we took it. We have it for a period of 5 years right now till we have to renew and pay the cost again. I believe it was $84. We paid $84 for 5 years worth of website access for the city. Again, I'm not sure if any of y'all have seen it. It's a tremendous looking website. We're still working on it, tweaking things around, but shopping, dining, things to see, what to do, upcoming events, things of that nature, visit highspringsfl.com. Right there in the packet, there is a picture of the billboard. The new billboard does have the website on it. The new billboard, everything stayed the same, except in February, we had the website address added to the billboard space. Due to the pandemic, though, many downtown activities were halted. Of course, in 2020, we know the previous fiscal year, Pioneers Days, was canceled. It did come back this past fiscal year, but in 2020, the year 2020 and the new fiscal year, we did help sponsor the Kiwanis Pumpkin Carving Contest. That helped bring people downtown. It was held outside during Halloween that time. We all know it eased off a bit with the social distancing. You know, we still had the social distance, but we were able to be out about a bit more than before that. So we didn't do much as far as participating activities, but we did do that. We were out there with the Kiwanis promoting downtown at that time. The report, we then sum it up, going back and looking forward, going back to the strategic plan and looking forward to the many projects we have based on the strategic plan. We are going to be working on the sidewalks. The sidewalks and curbing were supposed to have been in yesterday, but it precipitated, so it got pushed to next week. If you've driven by my office, you will see the framing is up for the sidewalks, but Tuesday, new sidewalks will be going in and curbing will be going in downtown around the beds that were approved at the previous meeting. Landscaping project will be beginning in May. We'll be starting in front of the CRA office and moving to the beds downtown. We have lighting projects that we've taken a step back, but we're now moving forward with. And we also have stormwater and parking plans that are in the design phase right now that we're hoping to move forward. And the other big one is EV parking spaces. We're hoping to move forward with that. And here in the next few minutes, we'll be discussing that. Also, and I think I gave out all my, nope, here's my copy. I also have a little supplemental report. There's one up on up on the dais. It is a spreadsheet turned into PDF copy. This just kind of gives an economic financial breakdown of what we did. Again, it wasn't much due to what we all went through this past year. I can give you some numbers real quick. Under economic development, the bar graph, we spent $60,000 on the creation of the strategic plan with GAI Consulting. We paid $5,000, which the city contributed another $5,000 to the Greater Gainesville book that's published each year. That goes in hotel rooms and is available digitally. We spent $4,700 on billboard advertising that was reimbursed through the grant. Again, the tourism website was $84. In community policing, we spent $6,200. That is the amount that the CRA pays the police department during the holiday season to have increased patrol downtown for people. That's what that falls under. Community engagement, we put the pumpkin carving contest and also the logo and branding that we're now using on the billboards, on the website, things of that nature to get people's attention. And the $45,000 was the grant that we received for the stormwater and parking study plan. So that's where this breaks down. That's just gives you a little fancy look at the things that we've done for this past year right there. Are there any questions? Again, I see this fiscal year that we're in now, again, moving forward with a lot more. Bruce has been a big help through his contacts, resources, and things. And he and I'll be sharing along the way more projects as we go. But if there's not any more questions, then that's pretty much it for our annual report. Now that it's been presented, Kevin can put it on the city's website on Monday.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I'd like to say that this billboard looks amazing. This is really cool.
Kevin was a big help in designing that. He worked with the graphic designers
Mhm.
more than I did. Once it's pretty much finalized, I said, I like it. So I don't want
wonderful.
to take away from what Kevin's done right there.
I was looking his way. He just wasn't looking my way.
All right, if we're done with agenda item 1, annual report presentation, we can move on to agenda item 2.
Okay. Discuss and consider creation, designation of 2 parking spaces for electric vehicle charging stations on South High Springs Main Street in front of Extreme Exposure and Global Underwater Explorers.
This item was brought at the last CRA board meeting. There was discussion. At the time, there were only 3 board members present. The motion was made to table this item until all board members were present. So that's where we stand at this time. There was discussion back and forth about the necessity of having electric vehicle charging stations in the downtown area. I truly believe there is a need, and there will be a growing need for this. As I mentioned previously, in the year 2030, most of the major manufacturers, Ford and GM, are going to be switching to electric vehicles. I see commercials all the time now. Hyundai just came out with, well, I saw it last night for the first time on TV. They have an all-new electric vehicle SUV out. Chevrolet just came out with an all-new electric Silverado. As we all know, Ford is their F-150 has the electric. Tesla is the big name. Extreme Exposure is requesting to use a small part of city property between the sidewalk and the curb in front of their building. Is it rotating, Kevin, or can we? It's rotating through. It is in your packet also, the location. It's about a 23-inch by 3-foot grass space they're requesting to put a charging station on. They will pay for the cost of the charging station. They will pay to hook it up to their building. Currently, Extreme Exposure is completely powered by solar panels on top of their building. They produce so much electricity, they are backfeeding Duke Power. And when I first started here, I was walking around introducing myself and got to speaking with Kyle Harmon, the manager there, and asked him things that he would like to see and they would like to have downtown. And that's how this discussion started. I said, that's a great idea. Let me see what I can do. And so here we are now. The CRA would be responsible for putting down the cement pad that the charging station would sit on. We would also be responsible for putting up 3 bollards around it to protect it from getting hit by vehicles. We would also be responsible for putting up a sign in front of the parking spaces, electric vehicle parking only, and also painting the parking space green, which is EV color parking right there, just like blue is for handicapped. That's where we left off at this time at the previous board meeting. Do any of the board members have any comments, questions?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just have a question. I know you say you want to put it over in front of their building. Is that the area where the clock is?
Yes, ma'am. It's between the clock and it's right in front of Extreme Exposure. Yes, ma'am. That little off piece right there.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to be sure.
Oh, yeah, there it is right there. It rotated through. There you go, right there. It's on that little piece of grass.
Okay, I got you.
As you can see, that one that just before he rotated off, the closest electric vehicle parking space or charging station this time is at the Hampton Inn in Alachua. There's nothing else in this area. Tioga and Gainesville, Celebration Point, Butler Plaza, those areas have plenty of them. You can see They're on the west side of Gainesville. That's where the majority of those little dots are lining up. There in the University of Florida, I think it would put High Springs ahead of the curve for us to have these at this time. And it is these charging stations. This is a second mid-tier charging station, meaning it charges quicker than what the ones at your home do, but it is not the fastest. You could probably help me. The big ones, the third type, require 3-phase electricity, and they can charge your car in like 20 minutes. This would probably take like an hour to charge someone's car completely. People pay for it. They can join part of a service that gives them a discounted rate when they pay with the monthly fee. These are things that Extreme Exposure would be working on and working out. I know previously Ashley had requested that we work out an agreement with them to consider several factors as if Extreme Exposure, if they ever did go out of business, who does a charging station fall to, as it would be wired to their building. If they went bankrupt, things of that nature. And so that's something that we would have to generate an agreement. There was also discussion of once Extreme Exposure recoup their cost each month for what they have to pay out, that once they start generating revenue on the positive side, we get a percentage of it as a city also. So those are things that we can work on in agreement with Extreme Exposure.
I have no question here.
Oh, okay. One question I have, in terms of the bollards, say somebody accidentally ran into it and the bollard needed to be replaced. That's another question I would have in terms of an agreement going forward. Would the city be responsible for replacing that bollard again?
If somebody who hit it, I would be going after an insurance claim with them, their vehicle's insurance. Again, if it's a hit and run.
If you knew who it was.
Yes, ma'am. If we knew, and I'm sure Extreme Exposure would be partial to putting a camera on that location also.
Mm-hmm.
The short answer would be yes, because it's in our right of way, but no different than hitting a public utility, we would be able to bill it through the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, did you get your question answered about the permitting?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be new territory since we've never permitted that here.
Mhm.
Since doesn't require 3-phase power, that makes it a lot simpler.
Okay.
We wouldn't have to do any major changes there. I mean, the onus of the permit application and all of the materials and the cost is going to be on the business owner. So, I mean, the liability from our perspective as a city is pretty minimal in my interpretation. But did anybody else have any questions?
From dealing with stuff like this in the past, there would be a spec sheet the company would have with the requirements, what the concrete would have to be reinforced with the power, all that. So there would be an electrical permit for that.
Mhm.
There would be a permit for the site review for the concrete pad where it's going, and Alan would have to do an inspection on that as well to make sure it's up to code, because we have wind load and things like that we have to be aware of also.
Mhm.
So there would be some engineering and review costs that would be associated with this.
But the total cost to the city would be under $5,000. Is that correct? Is that the number I was remembering from last time?
Yes, ma'am. Our cost would be the cost to pour a 23-inch by 3-foot square worth of concrete, 3 bollards, one on each side and one in front,
Mhm.
and a sign. And I've looked online, you can get electric vehicle charging signs slightly smaller than a speed limit sign for $45, $50.
Mhm. I concur that the out-of-pocket expenses are primarily the business owners.
Yes.
And, there's very
But-
limited liability exposure for the city. Since you brought this to us, I can tell you that I drove downtown a lot at the busiest times of day to see how many electric vehicles there were parked there, and there really weren't many. I saw a Tesla. I did see a Tesla. They're pretty easy to spot, but everything else pretty much had an exhaust. So I guess the one request I would have in terms of, this is not something I'm against by any means. I'm not sure that the location is ideal. I think something on the 441 corridor would maybe have a little bit more exposure, but those are different business owners and they don't want to pay for it. So could we compromise and just do one to start out with and do some kind of data collection over the next year to see if there was enough use to justify a second space? Because I'm concerned about people being disgruntled because they can't park their truck there, their diesel or their gas.
I'm open to us starting with one.
Mhm.
I think we could put the charging station in a place where a second spot can be created, but I think one might do well for them. Let's start with one. Let's let people know about it. Let's get it used. Then we can open up a second one. The great thing, Extreme Exposure is going to be taking this responsibility on. And secondly, their location, they are not up on the north end of Main Street where the parking is heaviest. They are located on the south end where the parking is lighter.
I would also, we're not really in our busiest tourist season right now either. So
Right.
while I don't think there's a lot of local residents that are probably driving Teslas at this point in time or something along those lines, the influx from the college kids coming out of town and the people using the springs and the divers and things like that, we've seen an increase on interstate traffic in some of the areas outside, just with the other areas I work in the city. And they're becoming more and more prominent. So I think as we get more into the summer months, we'll start seeing a lot more as well. So while I think one's a good idea, I wouldn't know that I would discount two right now based off of our traffic with tourism being on the lower end. I mean, right now we're in spring break, so there is some coming through, but
I've been looking
Gonna
for
get
the
heavier.
last month or so, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think they are coming. Used Teslas are becoming a thing now. And they're pretty marketable. So, I mean, I see the market coming. I just don't know that I'd like to see more data before we committed 2 spots.
Yes. That is the future. Definitely the future. And basically, a friend of mine have one, a Tesla. And basically that computer in that car, if he get low on power, the computer will tell him he's getting low, and then it will spot the nearest next one. So it's the technology.
Yeah, so they may find us that way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely. If they're on 75 and they're trying to get to what this, they put one in Hampton Inn, because only I used to remember was out there in Butler Plaza. I used to hate to go drive all the way over there. But yeah, people, if it's on the system, it'll pop up.
And we will also be part of I took a screenshot, I had it, plugshare.com. We will join into these other websites where people can see us that way also.
Yeah. And another thing probably is the speed. That might kind of deter people from coming, because I think another one over in Butler Plaza used to take about 20 minutes for that one. So that might be the only thing that people might.
But it takes a while to get there if you're over here.
Yeah, I mean,
That's 20 or 30 minutes.
I mean, what do a lot of people do downtown? I mean, a lot of them are going to eat,
yeah,
and we're adding restaurants. So you eat, it's about an hour, depending on where you go.
yeah. Well, I mean, let's say somebody's coming off the interstate and want to charge up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the big ones. Those require the 3-phase.
Yeah.
Take up a lot more space with the charging units, the power, and whatever else they're made of.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth a try. They've been trying to convince me to buy one, but I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But that's the future.
The one question I will ask the chair is, in an agreement with Extreme Exposure, are there a list of items that we need to include?
None for me, other than, analyzing the metadata after a year. Let's look at a calendar year and see how much it's being used. And if it's being used pretty regularly, I think a second one would make sense. Other than that, I mean, in terms of protecting the city, I would
That's why I was.
way prefer
While we have
Andrea's
Andrea
input
here,
to mine.
I want to make sure that any, outside of the legal protections that we need as a city, I don't know if this would be considered a lease, as we're not charging them for the space. They're just getting to use it. I'm not sure what this would be called, and if there's anything else that y'all would like to include in it, or if Bruce sees needs to be in it.
It likely would still be drafted as a lease agreement. I'll look and see what other municipalities are doing and if they're structuring it different, but just with a nominal rent. And then that way we have the reverter clauses, like you said, if the company goes out of business or something like that, that can revert back to us. And then we'll have the indemnification language and the insurance requirements, but anything above and beyond that, that the commission would like to include, we can include that as well.
So at this time, are we ready to vote? Anybody else have any comments? All right. So item number 2, to discuss and consider creating, we'll just say 1 parking space, if that's okay, for electric vehicle charging with the opportunity to expand it to. All those in favor, say aye.
Do we need,
Oh, we need a motion.
yes.
We need a motion and a second. Yes, please,
Do we
sorry.
need a motion or
Got-
just consensus? Because you have to come back to us with an agreement, right?
That's correct. I mean, we can do it as a motion, just directing the city attorney to bring back an agreement for review. And we can, or actually, let me rephrase that, directing us to work with EV to
No,
Come
extreme
to
exposure.
extreme,
EVs, electric vehicles.
extreme exposure to work on an agreement to bring back. Go ahead and do a motion for that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion that we move forward by working on an agreement with what is extreme
Extreme.
exposure for 1 place for EV recharging station. With the opportunity to go back if we need to for an additional station.
Second.
all right. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right. Now, item number 3.
Item number 3,
Discuss, consider and act on a facade grant for the Gavitt Building.
yes, thank you for allowing this item to be added at such the late hour. Through my double duties this week and the previous couple weeks working downstairs, this application was not seen until the last moment, so it did not get put on the agenda as it should. Rebecca Gavitt and her husband Glenn are requesting the maximum $5,000 amount for Facade Grant. They are the owners of the old CarQuest building, also Longman Ford. They are seeking to replace the front glass and the front door on the building. They've gone through and received 3 bids. Get to the bid page. The bids were $24,775, $24,998, and the least expensive bid was $17,910. And that's the bid that they submitted as the winner. Again, this project, they cannot receive more than $5,000 for this, even though they're spending well over that amount right there. After looking at what they're wanting to do, this business is going to be called the Watershed Restaurant. It is going to be an Applebee's, for lack of a better name, type restaurant. They're going to have burgers, loaded tater skins, wings, things of that type nature. It's going to be a place where you can walk in from the Springs in shorts and a t-shirt and eat. It's going to be a place where you can go watch football games. They're going to have TVs throughout the place. Also have a pool table in the back. They're going to have indoor and outdoor seating. It's also going to really help anchor the south end of Main Street. There'll be a lot of people driving electric vehicles going there. So now we've got a charging station for them. So staff recommends approval of this facade grant. They are wonderful people. This will be the second business they're opening in High Springs. So they are investing in our community. And funding is available for this facade grant also.
Any questions?
Sound good to me.
I got a question. I saw it in here. It says on one of the pictures, and I'm not sure it's whether one of the bids or it's part, but no changes to the structural elements of the building. So the two large front windows have those curved corners at the top. They're not going to square those off.
That's why things are so expensive.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to know. And also it looks like they're going to restore the transom, glass above the door, which is really nice.
I don't think, I will ask them again to clarify if they're going to do that. I do know they are replacing the front door. It's this one that I pushed when I was a kid going into the auto parts store.
So and again, I think it was in one of the bids. And I think it's the one they're recommending to go with. So, but even still, I think it's nice that that'll get uncovered if it is. That's my only question.
Any other questions? I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the facade grant for the maximum of $5,000.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Carries 5-0.
All right, moving on. Would you like to go first? Would you like me to go? Chair report is listed first.
Chair report is pretty quick and easy. I appreciate you being willing to work with me on the one spot. And I look forward to seeing what it brings downtown.
I think it will do well. Wait till these lifted electric trucks start coming through town.
As long as I don't want long beds.
Yeah, you have room.
We'll make them pull up a little bit more on the sidewalk.
Right into the bollard.
They do.
Yeah.
That will not be staff's recommendation.
No, no.
All right. Coordinator report. I mentioned earlier during the annual summary report, the curbing project is started. The sidewalks have been framed up, ready to pour. They were supposed to have been poured yesterday, but we've been weathered out. So they're coming back Tuesday. We're going to be blocking off spots Monday night. So Tuesday they've got access. We are doing 4 beds at the previous meeting. I had just requested the 2 beds on the west side on 185th Road, the west side of Main Street. Mr. Ambrose suggested doing both. So we're doing 4 beds. There's 2 on the east side of Main Street, 2 on the west side. So that will be going in, and the sidewalks are kind of the beginning of number 2 here on the report. I met with Cynthia from IFAS. She came over. Their office is now out there in Newberry at the new Ag Center. Their annual plant sale is May 14th. I believe she said May 4th or May 14th. When that is concluded is when they will be bringing plants over and starting our landscaping project here. I'll be meeting with her again in April so that she can kind of guide me on, all right, this is the bed where we need to start pulling out. I do not want to remove plants from beds until we're, 2 to 3 weeks out from putting plants back in them at that time. Also, part of the issue with landscaping is stormwater management. I had Miss Mindy Sykes, Madsen's Boutique, call me the other day, and I walked over there. It was last week when we had all that heavy rain, and in front of her door, the sidewalk was just flooded. So we're having an issue there. Some of it can be mitigated with improved new landscaping where we have to just take the bed down a certain bit. Other issues go into the streets, and curbing and sidewalks need help. Bruce went with our great new public works director, Thomas, and I'll let Bruce elaborate on this, but we now have a relationship with the DOT. Bruce, do you want to?
We met with DOT this week, had a really receptive meeting. They've changed some stuff around. They've relocated some positions that we had to deal with previously, like city office or now at the Gainesville office. They have a new engineer at the Gainesville office. I was going to report on this in the commission meeting tonight, but now as good as time as any. We have another meeting next week with them to start running through some of these intersection issues we've been having problems with, some of the sidewalk issues we've been having, pedestrian crosswalks downtown. We got a long list of things we're going to be sitting down talking with them on. They've made us aware of some grant opportunities that are available as well that we were unaware of, and we're just going to start pushing some of the things we've done. So I would expect myself and Thomas to be coming to the commission here in the future, requesting some letters from the mayor, requesting some letters of support from the commission to lobby some of these intersections to get looked at to see what we can do. They've already, I will tell you from the meeting we had, US 27 and Main Street are both, it's on their radar right now. They are scoping that project and they are looking at it and they're coming up with some ideas. They want us to be a part of this process as well. So we're going to be able to really have some good dialogue and come back with some good ideas, I believe. So that's where it's at. It's still in the infancy phase, but it was really promising this week.
No, don't turn your mic off. Keep it on. Next thing is downtown lighting. As I mentioned at the workshop, by the way, y'all look just as good as the commission does that I met with last week. It's hard for me to know which one's better, the board or the commission, but downtown lighting, Bruce and I were meeting Wednesday with a lighting designer coming back from Tampa. We're going to look at a new park package, our first phase of James Paul Park, lighting the park all the way around so that the backside of the old foodway, which is the old, thank you, yes, it's foodway to me, but the hospice will be lit up so that people can walk completely around the park. They're also going to be working on not only the aesthetic lighting, but looking at they're going to be one of the people who we're going to look at for improved safety lighting, working on improving the current lighting we have. Bruce has got some other vendors, he and Thomas, some other companies. I'll let him tell you real quick.
We've met with a few other companies. We've got a couple different bulb packages coming in too for the existing lights, some different wattages, some different LED styles, some different down lights, some different up. And they're sending them to us as demos. And we are going to be picking some areas in town that have some low lighting areas and trying these different bulbs out to see if rebulbing is going to be our issue, if we rebulb some stuff wrong. And we're going to start running through our current lights downtown and see if we can't get that lighting issue fixed for what we have. So you'll be seeing that over the next several weeks. These projects will be coming in. We'll keep you up to date. We'll let you know what bulbs we do, or we may not let you know what bulbs we do and to see if you notice a difference. And hopefully we can find one that works for us with our current configuration. We can work on those. And with the other areas we've looked at, we're going to start identifying some other areas to expand our downtown lighting projects and packages.
And also, last thing on the list, one of the projects Bruce and I are working on, I've gotten one quote back. I've got two others I'm waiting on, but looking at installing railing along the downtown bathroom, that elevated sidewalk, that's probably a foot to 18 inches high. We don't need anybody falling off that. And it will also help with traffic issues instead of people walking directly out from the chamber. And now that Chompers is in place, it will guide people to more of a crosswalk on either end of the building. I'm hoping next meeting I will be able to bring you 3 quotes. Bruce and I will look at them, make our recommendation, then present it to you so y'all can decide if this is a project you want to move forward on. And that's about it. Any questions?
Any questions?
We've had several people fall off of it already within the past year. Yes.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say.
Well, and I guess Chompers had a great deal to do with it since they're going to be there. They didn't want people walking off and going into Chompers, but it is a dangerous area.
You and I have talked a lot about this, and you saw the one quote we got back, and it was like, oh, good. You saw the one quote I got back on the cost of the railing. So, and we talked about that, and Dave and I sat down and brainstormed this a little bit, figured we could use it as a CRA project, and it's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be worth it in the long run, and it's going to be a benefit. So we're plugging away on that, and like you said, hopefully we'll have it together for the next meeting, and we can get it approved, get it installed, and before they open, and have this ready to go.
Well, it's cheaper than a lawsuit.
Yes,
so
sir.
we've been lucky.
Absolutely. And it looks
Thank
really
you.
good back there. Going back there, just all the cleanup from the Kelly Barber building and what they've done and around, it's all looking really good back there. So
Yeah, it is.
we're going to see a lot more traffic back there.
Yeah.
And I did request too, I requested, give me a nice, Yeah. Ornamental, that's what I'm looking for, ornamental. And that's about, I appreciate y'all coming this evening. I hope y'all like the 5 o'clock meetings. I'm hoping that as Bruce and I start working through more projects, we can even bump these to 5:30 if we, 5:30.
Bump to the 5:30 next meeting.
So-
That's the annual report, so I want to make sure that we're rushing between the two meetings.
In that way, and I'm complete.
Everybody like this so far? This way
Mhm.
for the meeting.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Look forward to coming
Yeah.
back again another night.
A little easier, and it gives us a chance to get stuff on the agenda a little bit earlier, get the sensibility out. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we just have one thing on here, all that some stuff.
I have one question for you, Bruce. The engineer that you're dealing with at DOT, is it somebody who used to work in Lake City or have they just moved us to Gainesville?
We got a new person.
Really?
So we have a new person. The guy's name's Jesse Sutton. We didn't meet with Jesse. We
No
met,
relation.
no. We met with Marty up in Lake City. Marty was in a different position now. He's running the Lake City office for Division 2. They've broke some stuff up in Division 2, one of which being Alachua and Bradford County with a lot of the projects they have going on. So apparently this position's been here for a little bit, but Jesse's fairly new to it. So that's who we're meeting with next week. Marty handles some of the scope grants and some of the other things we'll be working with as well. So we're going to be dealing with both still, but our main point of contact is going to be over there. And they did express that they know we have these issues. They are concerned about the issues. I mean, 202 Street and 441 was a big topic of discussion. So, I mean, they're looking at, they may not do a red light right away, but there's been a talk about maybe let's do a reduction of speed. If we put them down to 45 miles an hour, does that help? I'm like, well, yeah, because I'm not pulling out of the pit on the Daytona 500 trying to get back on the track to go to Alachua.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes no sense. We go from 35 to 45 to 95, it's what it feels like. And then you got 3 miles of road there that is a racetrack, it's a drag strip. So that's just some of the discussion. They told us point blank, listen, we're not going to tell you yes on everything, but you know, we'll at least listen and we'll try to work through things together. And as long as we're all reasonable, we should be able to accomplish some good things.
At least
Okay.
it's long.
It's not really, it wasn't. I was expecting maybe 20 minutes and it was going to be like, we were going to be, okay, we heard you have a nice day. And it was, we got there at 10 o'clock. We came back to High Springs about 12:30. So, I mean, it was a good, long, productive meeting. And they did spill the beans and let us know they were looking at that intersection there. There's some discussion on that. One of the suggestions is no semi-traffic on that alternate 27.
Yes.
So they may put a sign up, no semi-traffic on that, divert them all to 441 and make them turn left.
That's right.
It's an idea. There's some discussion about some of the parking downtown. I'm not going to say take it away. That's not where we went, but reducing it to compact vehicles to where there's none of those big long trucks and people parking on the sidewalk. Those were the types of discussions that were had. So I felt like it was very productive. Thomas felt like it was very productive, and they're at least seeing us and know we're here now, and they welcome the dialogue at this point. So we'll keep building that relationship and let's see what we can do.
Good, good.
That's good. Long time overdue.
I'm going to guess there's no public comments. So we can probably move past that. Kevin, you got anything?
Open the floor up to anyone who is on Zoom, all one of you. And if Ms. Brown would like to speak, then you can raise your hand. If not, we'll close comment here in a few seconds. Yeah, there's no hand right now.
Okay.
One thing I do want to say is thank you for the opportunity to be the director. I appreciate it. It's a good learning experience for me. I knew what the CRA did. I didn't realize how in depth it was. Working with Dave's been its own unique experience. We get along really well. We've worked together a long time. So we share some of the same visions and we don't share some of the same visions. So it's going to be a good, unique experience. And I'm looking forward to it over the next several years to get some of these projects done and get your vision complete as a board and, you know, some of the additional needs we see downtown and see what we can do to improve our community. So thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Since we got a little time, Dave, you go buy us some hamburgers, some fries and bring them back.
Okay, we're adjourned if we're going to get hamburgers. Let's go.
Yeah. Good evening. At this time, I call this High Spring City Commission meeting to order March the 24th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. At this time, we have a call to order and roll call, please. Not here.
Here. Commissioner Ambrose.
Here.
Here. Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
All right, thank you, ma'am. At this time, we have a moment of silence. As in the silence, let's remember the people of Ukraine. That's in this moment of silence, please. And following that, we had the Pledge of Allegiance. Man, thank you. At this time, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda. We'd like to, on new business, we need to add 2 items. Discuss and consider act of the purchase of the replacement elevators for the city hall. That's number 5. And discuss and consider the act of the purchase of the cardiac monitors. That'll be number 6 under new business.
I make that motion to add, approve the agenda with the additions 5 and 6.
I second.
All right, thank you. All right, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Okay, approval of the consent agenda for the minutes of March the 10th, 2022.
I move we pass the items contained on the consent agenda as included.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or any corrections? Favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same signs. Motion carries. Second. So this on the minutes, what y'all got here? The operational agreement with the Anderson Outdoor Venture? LS? That's on the consent also. Okay.
Number 2,
Okay,
D2.
y'all done changed up on me here.
That's the first time we've done the consent.
Yeah. It's a new change. Okay, so I entertain a motion.
Yes, we already approved the consent agenda.
Okay, so y'all want to do them separate?
Yes,
I said see 1 and 2, so, okay.
Yeah.
so with the motion, when you pass the approve of the consent agenda, it passed both of them at the same time.
Oh, we learned something new
Sometimes you
today.
have a lot of them and that makes it even nicer.
Okay.
But I do.
All right, works for me. Okay, so we can move on to item number E, special presentation.
I don't think we have any.
We'll have it.
We don't have any?
Y'all teach
Oh,
me
we
tonight.
moving right along here. We moving right along. Oh.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right, number F, unfinished business. Discuss and consider direction for AMI.
We have not approved. We have not approved yet. So a couple commission meeting back, we accepted the RFQs for the AMI project for water meter replacements, and we have spoke with both companies. Staff feels that the recommendation is going to be to move forward with Suez, who submitted. As well, with that, we are recommending that you will direct staff that we can go ahead and negotiate price and contract agreements with Suez to bring back at a future meeting with the cost of the project so we can start moving forward. Give you a few ideas of why we went with Suez. One was the asset management portion of the program was the big key. Last meeting, Commissioner Ambrose asked why somebody else went with Core and Main or why they were using that project. We did our methodology on our AMI project a little different than some of the other communities. We looked at what the companies could provide, who was able to provide asset management. That was a big thing. This is a huge task to be undertaken. And we're looking at replacing 2,800 meters at one time. Suez has their own people, their own employees that will come out and do this, where another company would have to contract with somebody else. They would come in and do the work, and then they would give us the system and leave. There would be no management of the system afterwards. Suez will continue to manage the system after they install it for us as well. We weren't real meter specific when we looked at this. We really didn't have any idea what meter we were going to go with. We had some general thoughts. Currently, our system comprises of 3 meters. We have Neptune meters. We have RG3s, or also known as a Tesla meter, and we have a Badger meter. After running through and receiving samples and looking at a few meters, staff has decided that we're more than likely going to move forward with the Neptune meter. The Neptune meter we're considering is the T10 Neptune meter, which is similar to one of the meters we have now that we're using under AMR, but it's just some different technology. And then they have a new meter that's come out within the last year that was similar to the other company's meter that you saw last time, which is called the Mach 10. And we will do a small test group within house is the thought process of ordering 200 to 300 of those and putting them into a couple subdivisions so we can do our own control group and see how the meters work and read. And if that's the direction, we'll start moving forward to that new technology. Basically what I need tonight is permission from the commission to say, yes, move forward with negotiations with Suez so we can start putting a contract together, start looking at pricing, and then I can come back with the total cost of the project and how we propose to pay for it. And that you're willing to accept Suez as that contractor.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any questions. I'm ready to consent.
So am I.
What else? Yeah.
Good.
All right.
I
So
was
that
hoping
need
it was
consensus to
Suez.
say, we don't need no motion. Yes,
Just move forward.
move forward. All right. All right. Says, requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Anyone like to speak at this time on the item not on the agenda? Nobody? All right. And moving down to new business.
Wait, you have any?
Yes.
About the Heart of High Springs Incorporation. A friend and I went to the second Wall Dog meeting at the library in 2019. Core group members of the Heart of High Springs, Inc. were present supporting the Wall Dogs. They were talking about gathering of donations, talking about painting murals on the walls of High Springs. I remember rising up as I said, "Why do you want to deface the walls of High Springs?" One of the members turned to me and said, "It's for the money, John." I said, "For the money? Deface the walls of High Springs for the money?" Again, the person turned to me and said, "It's for the money, John." Not one word was mentioned to fix these town streets of its potholes, nor the rotten wood trim on the old school building. Not one word of restoring and beautifying High Springs or helping the children. After all that I remembered was said of that early evening meeting in 2019, it's in it for the money, John. It's for the money, John. If you vote in favor for this Wall Dog thing, it makes me wonder, is there any financial help to fix the roads and to restore and preserve the town? Is there not help for the children? Is it only to get a mural on any wall to leave our townsfolk with the mess? Will the potholes remain? And will the word wall dogs always be a stain in its name on the walls and in the halls of City Hall? Because all I remember is what they told me. It's for the money, John. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one rising, we're moving on to. Have you got somebody on Zoom?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we do. We have one hand on Zoom. Joanne T., you have 5 minutes and your time starts now. Please state your full name for the record.
That was a mistake. I didn't mean to raise my hand.
There's no one else on Zoom at this time.
Sir. All right. So now we're moving on to H, new business. Item number 1, discuss and consider the act of requesting the High Spring Chamber of Commerce to waive fees.
My name is Sandra Webb, and I'm the Vice President of the Chamber. And here tonight to request the fees to be whatever, for
Waived.
waived,
Yeah.
yes, for using the Civic Center for the rest of the year.
Like typically they use it on
For our-
Tuesdays once
Our
a month.
mixer meetings, the second Tuesday of every month. And we've been, I've been on the chamber for a long time and I've always used it. So this is new to me coming up requesting for it. But I understand what's, of everything. So just, requesting to have the fees waived for us. Be able to use the Civic Center.
So our policy allows for the city to waive staff to waive 50% of fees for nonprofits. And so as requested, we will waive 50%, but this is a request for 100% waiver. So that's why it's being brought to you tonight.
Ms. Decker, did you have a comment?
The thing for me, it was just $900 a year. And I could tell you a sad story about our finances down here. Most of y'all know that, but we cannot squeeze that in. And she said everything else, but that was my concern. Because we do events, but we spend our money bringing in entertainment and we have enhanced our events and we do it for the community. And we just can't do it. We don't have the money.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Is this a new fee or is this just something they ask to be waived every year? It's just a matter of practice that we're doing?
So historically, the chamber has had their fees waived
Okay.
since before I ever started working here. And, we have a lot of nonprofits in the city and it's an effort to treat all nonprofits the same. The city attorney just brought up to me that the policy says that if you host an event that will last longer than 3 months, you must request a fee waiver each quarter. So that means they would need to come back every 3 months. And that was put in place. That's been the case. And some nonprofits, other nonprofits, we just do the 50%. And so I think this tells me that you can only request, they would have to come back every quarter.
But historically, their fees have been waived.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I appreciate all the things the chamber does. When we look at policy, if now because they're a nonprofit and they can't afford it, that becomes the basis for waiving the fee, then what's the point of having a policy that nonprofits, pay 50% because there's still a real cost to citizens. And so I looked, the only other chamber close by that I know, I checked with the Alachua Chamber, and when they use the women's club for their monthly meeting, they pay $100 as a token fee for that. And I also know that currently the office fee to use the city building is $10 for the year that you're charged for that space. So, I mean, I'm torn. I mean, I'll go with the will of the commission, but I just think that, we can't afford it, especially from the chamber is question. I mean, booth space for Pioneer Days is charged for, and garage sales are charged for. And I know you're spending that money, back into the community, but there's a community cost for the utilities and the maintenance and the wear and tear on the building. So when people go, well, why don't you keep that up, or why don't you fix that? And, we're losing token revenue. I'm torn. So.
Yes.
The Chambers has never been charged for the use of these rooms. It just came up recently amongst some other issues that came up in this town. And all of a sudden, the museum, I believe, and the chamber received invoices for it. I think it's tied to something else, and I don't approve of that. I don't know why we have to change our way of doing things. The chamber does not make a lot of money. I don't imagine that they would be able to afford to continue to have their meetings there. And you mentioned Pioneer Day. That benefits greatly the city. I mean, that's not a chamber thing at all. It's the city that benefits from that. We get people from all over. It's huge. So I disagree with Commissioner Ambrose and believe that we should continue to not charge the chamber for the Civic Center.
Can I say something? And I'm willing, as part of the chamber to help, like clean up, or if there's any kind of repairs.
We do that.
Or painting or whatever, we're willing to do that as the community, to help the community. We're not asking to get something free all the time. We really are, but. But I mean, it's like we're, with the Pioneer Days, we're bringing people in here. And it does cost a lot, because we have to pay for advertisement and stuff like that. And I mean, we're willing to help. And there's, whatever's happened to our little town, because I've been away, I've kind of slacked off with the chamber a little bit. And I apologize if whatever has happened, I apologize from my heart, because I love everybody in this little town. And I'm willing to do whatever, I'm not ashamed to say I'm sorry, or, if I did anything in harm's way to hurt anybody, because that's not how I was raised. I can feel my mama slap me in the back of the head if I'm ugly, and she's been dead for a long time. So.
Can I say something? I've never heard of this. Have we done something to somebody? Because as far as I know, we haven't. I don't know.
This is not anything personal.
Oh,
I mean, this is like the city policy that was passed at some point in time by resolution, says that all nonprofits pay 50%. And if they want a waiver, it has to come to commission. So we are trying to treat all nonprofits the same. It's not just y'all, any nonprofit. There's other nonprofits that request over a 50% waiver. We're just trying to be fair and treat everyone equitably. And other nonprofits can come and ask for waivers 100% too. We can also look at changing our policy. So in our policy, we can pick specific organizations that maybe we waive their fees every year that we know have like the same things come up over and over and over again. And this tells me we probably need to change our policy. So right now we're just trying to abide by what's on the books, and because I can't as a city manager, I have to go by the rules and probably discuss changing our policy in the future, but that's at the commission's will.
Mayor. Oh, go ahead, Gloria.
Okay. What I wanted to say is, it has been past practice that the chamber makes a meeting on a monthly basis. The fees have been waived. But having said that, I think the issue comes in treating everybody the same. And that's where the problem is. If you do it for one, then you're going to have other nonprofits that want you to do it for them. And you don't know where you're going to draw the line. So from beginning to end, you're giving away funds that the city needs to pay for the operation of whatever is going on in that particular activity. And I say that because I'm in the same boat. All right. I do, as you guys know, I do AARP. We're trying to find somewhere to go as a city just as well. So I know where you are. But I also know if you do it for one, it sets the precedent. Then you're going to have to do it for everybody else that comes along.
And I don't want to, I mean, if another nonprofit's got to pay 50%, then the chamber will pay 50% also.
But I think that's what she's saying. They all should, is required by law right now to pay 50%. Your group as well as mine.
Yeah.
And then the others that comes down the line. As it sits right now, that's what the regulations say. The ordinance says rather.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, this just came about. We've had that resolution on the books for years. But all of a sudden it came up and we don't know why. So I'm curious as to know why this all of a sudden came up when it's never been an issue in the past and you've not done anything, Sharon. Or no, I mean, y'all have not done anything wrong. This is not punishment for anything. But to get a letter the day before your meeting that you would be required to pay $75 and fill out this long form before was a bit, I mean, no notice was given anywhere. And that's strange.
So Damon, is the cost of the room $75? So they could have gotten 50% off. So would that be like 30 some? 150, so it'd be $75 for half. Okay.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I think just in terms of fitting the Chamber of Commerce in the context of all nonprofits, the Chamber of Commerce is uniquely different in that everything they do is for the benefit of the city. You know, not that other nonprofits don't benefit the city as well, but I think the primary focus for any chamber is bringing business in, supporting the businesses that are here. So their function is I think a little bit different. And, you know, so long as we're not punitively charging them for whatever reason now, I think that certainly isn't appropriate. But I agree with you, actually, that we probably need to look at that policy and shore it up a little. But, you know, I would certainly be in favor of granting them the waiver for the next quarter so that we could perhaps work on that policy in the interim.
Any other questions? Yes. Only thing I'm saying is if we're going to do it for one, we have to do it for all. We've got to be consistent. And there have been other groups that did come ask for waivers. Mr. Barber, I can't remember his group, and he used to go out there for the music night they used to have. I think we kind of gave it the way to fees for them. And there's been other nonprofit groups that had events, but it wasn't a monthly thing, but we had wait free. My biggest concern is if we do it for one, we have to do it for all. We got to be consistent. That's just with everyone. There's no little profit, nonprofit, a big little profit. All of them are nonprofits and nonprofits. And that's why I say nonprofit. They're not in business for profit and their funds are limited. So that's my only concern. If we do it for one, we got to do it for all. If they come in and say, we want the building for free, got to be consistent.
Well, Mayor, can I ask you something?
Yes.
We do ours every month, but do the other nonprofits do theirs every month as well?
That's why I said there's some groups that don't, they might have just one event.
Oh, okay.
But staff has had requests for, recently from a group in particular that has a meeting every month. And I did tell them they need to, and they can 50% or they have to come to the commission for a waiver.
Okay.
Anyone else from the audience like to speak on this? Anyone else? And commissioners?
I move that we waive the fees for the next quarter so that we can decide what we want to do with this. It's come up very quickly, so we need to take a look at it.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? And none? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 2. Discuss and consider active moving forward on this regarding the murals in the city of High Springs.
This was requested by Commissioner White, in light of, what has been going on with the murals and, wanting to come to town. Staff and the city attorney's office has done some work. There are cities that, have, ordinances specifically for murals. There are some areas we can put regulations on and some areas we can't due to First Amendment rights. Currently, as it stands in the city, the only thing that we have is our sign ordinance. And there's specific times that sign ordinance would be tripped and other times it wouldn't, particularly when it involves advertising, the sign ordinance is tripped. But typically, if it doesn't involve advertising, then it would be considered a mural. And so in our historic district, and there is a particular area designated as our historic district, then if someone wanted to do a mural, it would trip our certificate of appropriateness and it would go in front of the Historic Preservation Board. Their regulations are pretty, they're not specific all the time. They're pretty general. So as long as it's in character with the area, the colors and all of that, then typically staff would have to recommend approval. For the rest of the city, we don't have any regulations at all. So people could put what they want on their property, as long as it doesn't incite violence or anything of that nature. So I'll let Commissioner White take it from here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Ashley. Conversation about the murals has been going on pretty actively for the past few months in the public. And I've taken a lot of calls, a lot of emails, and I've tried very much in earnest to listen to both sides. I attended the event that the Heart of High Springs had here in the chambers, and as well as the 2 events they had in the library. And the overwhelming side in opposition far outweighs, for me, the side that's in support of it. And none of that has anything to do with anybody personally by any means. The wall dog that was here in town was absolutely lovely, and his daughter gives me hope in the future. She was just a delightful creature, and I don't think they mean any ill will by any means. But I think that we need to get past this and get something more solid in place for the city so that we do have an ordinance that directs what we can and cannot do. That we stick with historical colors. And I'm hoping that the folks involved with the Heart of High Springs will, and this is a difficult ask because we're all human, but can maybe set their ego aside to listen to what the people in the town are saying, because the people in the town are overwhelmingly against a Wall Dogs Festival. They're not necessarily against a mural or 2. A lot of people have said, we're not against, the idea of a mural, but I don't think they want to have their town taken over by other folks. And, I wonder if, we couldn't come up with some kind of compromise idea where even if the Wall Dogs came into town, perhaps they could paint 4x8 sheets of plywood or something that could be a standalone that wouldn't be affixed to a building. And maybe we could put some kind of revolving display out in front of the schoolhouse or something so that they could come in and paint 12 and we could put a different one up every month or something. And then maybe one or two of those would gain some traction and people in town would like to see them hung on a building somewhere, but not painted directly on the building. Because that's something that folks seem to be very much in opposition of, is painting the buildings. But I think that the storyboards that they put together were beautiful, very, very professional, really great stories. And it was fascinating to read them. And I'm hoping that maybe the Heart of High Springs might donate them to the city or to the museum so that they could be shown, because they were really, really lovely. But none of the storyboards that were presented translated to what they proposed would be painted on walls. And I know that they said they had identified up to 30 walls that were appropriate, but I never heard what 30 walls they were talking about. So there was no data yet to be gathered, nothing to be solidified. So I was hoping that if we came up with some kind of revolving mural presentation that wasn't on a building in the beginning, that maybe we could take that to a different step later on after people had some input. So I'm hoping that there's some compromise ground here and it's not an all or nothing kind of proposal from the Heart of High Springs. And one of the things that Commissioner Ambrose made a point about that I think is really important at the library was the misunderstanding that any city funds were going to be spent. There's no budgeted line item, and I think that's important for people to know that. But the amount of time that this one issue has taken of city staffs would be hard to calculate because it's been so much. And that's what we really need to, we got to get the city staff back to the business of, water, sewer, and roads. Those are the things that I think we need to focus on right now. And their time has been completely co-opted by this one small group of people. And I think if we, as an elected body within a constitutional republic, are doing our job, we've got to make sure we are representing the entire community, not just a special interest group, but we've got to listen to all of the people. That doesn't mean that I don't think we can compromise. I think we can. But I think the city maybe could look at, with Andrea, could look at a mural ordinance in tandem with the sign ordinance to make sure that they match up well, make sure that the language is consistent and that it's the same kind of message going forward.
It's a good
So,
idea. Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
I think it's really good that Commissioner White has brought this forward, because really what she's doing is talking about creating policy, and a policy to make decisions from that isn't specific to a group. I think government needs to be very careful when you start creating legislation or rules that are specifically designed to impede the efforts of citizens within the community. So coming up with a policy and developing that so that city staff can focus on what's important and what's within their realm is important, because this has gotten to be a distraction for city government, and it's a private group using private funds in the community. So I'm going to be in support of any kind of a motion that says, let's develop a sign ordinance and directing, the city attorney to maybe draft an ordinance for us to look at. But I want to be careful that as a government, we're not designing something to impede a legal entity being operated by citizens, privately raising money to do work on private property. And I think that's a very dangerous place for the city to go and be careful of.
I'm looking at it from a different perspective. It wouldn't matter the group that was coming before us, whether it be Wild Dogs or whatever. I don't think a small group of people should be able to come into the city, fill out a permit, and do whatever they want in this city. And we as a commission have nothing to do with it. It states so in the application. Commissioner approval not needed if they don't ask for money, in-kind services or if alcohol beverages are not being served. We're dead in the water, so they can do whatever they want. This is what we need to stop. And I don't care about the content. We need to, I know, I hear everybody's got rights, but we do too. I do too. And when I hear, as Catherine says, so many people who are against this, why don't they consider that? Doesn't it say something to them? We got an uphill battle. Why? What is the battle? I don't understand it. Why are you coming in and saying to us, this is what you need and this is what we're going to do? And that's what they said initially. This is going to pass. You don't have a thing. There's nothing you can do about it. And they were right. So we're trying to make sure that when they come up with the big one in 2023, that they can't just sail through. We've got to have some barrier up there, some say as to what goes up in this city, not just have somebody. And like I said, it is not content. I've seen their signs and they're beautiful. I don't have any problem with what they do. I just do not believe it's for the city of High Springs. But even if the mass of people here said that I want it, this is what we need, I would vote for it because I follow the lead of the residents of High Springs. That's my job. So that's my viewpoint.
You're welcome. We're trying to create a ordinance for a policy, what you can and cannot do. Am I correct? This is not to for any particular group. It's for across the board. If Elijah and paint company come in, want to do mirrors, they follow the rules. It's across the board policy, which that's what we do as a city. We have policies and procedures. We have guidelines for people when they want to try to do something in the city of High Springs. This is how you have to do it. And this is not about a group. It's about a policy, a guideline for people can go by when they come and want to do a mural in High Springs. So I don't have a problem trying to come up with a policy on this that's going to fit everyone.
And like you said, Mr. Mayor, just on the legality side of it, any kind of mural ordinance would have to be content and viewpoint neutral. And so it would not be directed to any specific group. It would be evenly applied to any group who comes in and applies to have a mural permit. And in the regulations within the ordinance also would have to be very content neutral, meaning that there needs to be a lot of adequate procedural safeguards as far as timing of the application, and it needs to be tied to a governmental interest. So all of the regulations we would need to express why that is important for the municipality to have those regulations in the ordinance.
Any other questions from the audience? I see some hands go up a few minutes ago. Are y'all trying to get my attention? Turn the mic on? Okay. Okay. Anyone on Zoom?
So, Mr. Mayor, we have two on Zoom. The first is Alice Brown, and then we'll go, and this is up to you, Mr. Mayor, Patrick Sherry from WUFT. That would be a member of the media, but we'll bring
Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Hello, I'm Alice Brown, and I thank you for your time tonight. And I'm here to say why I support item 2 and item 3, adopting a murals ordinance and the special event application review of. So you each have some background on this topic, but there are still residents in our commercial district who've never heard of the Heart of High Springs Incorporated or Wall Dogs. I met two of them this week, shop owners who didn't know their buildings were being considered for a murals paint job. Now, the walldogs.com have listed our city on their website as a future location of an installment of a dozen or so murals to be applied in and around High Springs in as little as 5 days. And the Heart of High Springs is poised to ask you to grant them a permit to do all of this with only a simple, inexpensive, and easy to submit application. And I have to ask, how is that logical? So we have in High Springs a special events permit, and we also have a few codes regarding the facades of our buildings. But lumping an historic overnight change to the facade of our entire town during an event to accomplish such an act doesn't appear anywhere in our MENA codes. It's not logical to me that these two completely disparate events or acts, a festival and a dozen murals, will result in a consequence that can be permitted by the city right now, all at once and with one stroke of the same pen. Murals are public works of art, not simply the color of the side of a building, which isn't regulated here except on historical assets. And works of art aren't supposed to include business logos, trademarks, or names, so they can't fall into the category of signs, which we do have some regulations for. So it's just confusing and illogical to entwine murals with festivals and public art with event permits without an arts council or an ordinance to potentially marry these two acts. And thank you for your time and attention tonight. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Thank you.
Hello, this is Patrick Sherry from UFT Radio. I just wanted to ask a question to the Commissioners Board or whoever who might be able to provide insight. What were the main reasons people are looking to paint these murals on these buildings, and what content, if you know any, would they be interested in putting on these murals?
So currently we do not have anyone from that group here to answer those questions. If anyone in the audience is from the group, I don't see anyone that I know as part of the group. So I think it would be inappropriate for staff to answer those questions and represent someone else that's not the city.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess you're basically looking for a direction tonight to try to come up with a.
Right. Just direction if you want us to start working on one or not.
Mr. Mayor, may I? Obviously, Andrea, it needs to be legal, and thank goodness we have you for that. But within the confines of making it legal and content neutral and all of that stuff, I understand. Can we incorporate into an ordinance that something couldn't go directly on a building, that it would have to go on some kind of board that could be affixed? Can we make reference to the maximum size, like 10% of the wall? I've seen that in some of the ordinances. Are we able to incorporate that kind of language in?
Mr. Mayor, things like regulating size, height, placement, or lighting of a mural or public art is something that is often done in a mural ordinance and is something that the courts uphold as content neutral. As far as whether or not you can paint directly on the building, I think it gets a little bit more unclear, especially in private property. And I'd like to look into that a little bit more before telling you for certain if that would be okay. But as far as the height restrictions that you mentioned, that's something that is typically regulated as a content neutral restriction.
Can we also, can we also incorporate into that a process by which approval would, the direction it would go, who it would go to first, what kind of organization would, because, Mrs. Brown said something about an arts council. I don't know if we would incorporate that into an ordinance, but that's a great idea. People who actually have an artistic brain like I don't.
And Mr. Mayor, again, with the mural ordinance, as long as you have, in order to be content neutral, you need to have adequate procedural safeguards. And one of those would be having a very clear process that every mural permit would go through. And so ensuring that there are clear time limits that are met. So if a mural permit is applied for, that there is, an answer, or they're at the next hearing within 30 days or whatever it may be. So there's a clear expectation. There's not an indefinite period of time so that some are approved quicker than others. It just has to be a very clear standard process. And again, making sure that we are not making it overly difficult for an individual to get a mural on their private property. It needs to be something that is attainable as well. So clear process that is not too much red tape, if that makes sense.
Mayor. That's what I'm hoping for, is that we can get a clear process. My main objective is to make sure that, excuse me, as I said before, that commissioners have a say as to who comes into our town to do these things. I think we should have some, and it has nothing, again, to do with content, but I think we ought to have the ability to have some input to this and make a decision as to whether it's something that's appropriate or not. And if it goes through the Arts Council or the Planning Council or whomever it needs to go through, that will help the process. But somewhere along the line, we need to have our rights protected as well.
Mr. Mayor, maybe a clarification on the mural ordinance. As far as public art and a public place, that is absolutely something that would come before. If we make the ordinance have this process, it would come before an art commission. Art on a private property, there is going to be less regulation in general, just because it's on private property and there are much more protections there. Okay. So there can be regulation as to, things like the size, the height, the placement, but there's not, I have not seen an ordinance that would have a request for a mural on private property come before an art committee as well, because the content of that mural on someone's personal property to regulate what can or cannot go there or who can or cannot paint there is now getting into violations of people's First Amendment rights. And so what we'd be looking at is just some sort of consistent guidelines that can be used. But as far as every mural in the city coming before an art committee, that realistically wouldn't happen for art on private properties.
I was wondering, yeah.
My grandson. Okay, item number 3. Microphone, man. You need a button over there to click me on and off. Okay, item number 3. Discuss and consider and act on truth versus myth on city media and permits. Yeah, I thought actually, anybody else wanted to talk about the ordinance? Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I ask who requested this be put on the city site?
Staff made the decision to, sometimes there's rumors that go out in the public and we try to put the truth out there. And so city staff made the decision to put it on Facebook.
So it was made by city staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I really didn't have a whole lot of trouble with all of it, except that the last one, a ballot item can prevent, this is a myth, wild dogs from coming into High Springs. And basically I understand why you say it can't, because of our permitting. Ordinarily, our charter provides us guidance as to how to get something on the ballot to keep it from happening in our city. But because the permit that they fill out does not, as long as they don't cross any of the lines for the commissioners, they can come in anyway. So really, it's a moot point, this point that I brought up. I'm very happy to see the permits, the murals that Catherine brought up stand as it is. But it upset me because there were people who thought they could get it on the ballot and say no. So that part of it did bother me. And would have questioned it if this was not moving forward. Thank you. That's it.
Moving on to item number, that's on CSHR 1493. Commissioner Jones. I'm sorry, anyone from the audience? Anyone from the audience? Anyone from the audience? Like to make comments on the last item? Anyone on Zoom, Kevin?
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Brown wants to speak again.
All right.
3 minutes. Time starts now.
I have a question, please, about the idea of putting something on a ballot. So I was reading the ordinances and it said that the people could make a petition, and if the petition was signed by 10% of the resident electors, sorry, if the petition was signed by 10% of the electors, that something indeed could change. Maybe it wouldn't end up on the ballot, but it could be a petition to say that the town would not like to have this happen. I think it did mention that it could go on the ballot. Can anybody explain to me why all of a sudden I'm hearing that it could not go on the ballot? Because I was confused by that last myth versus truth also.
I would like to specify that what the truth was. It did not say that something could or could not go on the ballot. The myth was a ballot item can prevent wall dogs from coming to High Springs. The truth that was put out there said special event permits are granted taking into consideration the life, health, safety, and general welfare of High Springs citizens and visitors. Special event permits cannot be permitted or denied based on the content of the event. The right to gather and hold events is a protected First Amendment right. So that did not say that something could not be put on the ballot, but we cannot take any group and say the group does not have a right to gather in the city. So we cannot grant or deny special event permits based on content or the group that wants to gather.
But the group is not gathering, they're actually planning an activity. And I'm pretty sure that it said that that a vote by that number of people would have to count. In our ordinances, there's the right for the people to go to petition. Can you speak to that? Is my time up?
So for clarification, this can go, they could do a petition, take it to ballot, but all it does is make an unenforceable ordinance. And from my understanding, because we can't enforce the ordinance on private property, correct?
Right. So, Mr. Mayor, there is in the city charter, section 5.06, Citizens Petition Initiative, which allows for citizens to have a petition with 10% of the qualified voters. They can bring forward a proposed ordinance. At that point, if they have the proper signatures, it would come before the commission to consider that ordinance read exactly as prior to getting the signatures, they have to actually have the ordinance drafted. So that exact ordinance would come to the commission. The commission would vote whether to approve or deny that ordinance. If the ordinance as written, I felt was not something legally enforceable or something that we could uphold because it was not content neutral, I would advise the commission to deny that ordinance. If that happened, it would then go to a referendum election. At that point, at a referendum election, if it was passed, it would then become an ordinance on the books that cannot be repealed for 2 years. At that point, again, if it was a content neutral ordinance that was not targeting a certain group or certain properties or anything like that, that'd be fine. But if it was not content neutral, anytime it came up as an application for someone for a mural permit, I would then advise the commission that we do have an ordinance on the book. However, it goes against state and federal law. And at that point, I would recommend again voting no. So there is a process for the Citizens Petition Initiative to come forward with an ordinance, but that ordinance also has to be something that's legal. And so I think that's where the confusion's coming in, is that anything that is proposed has to still be something that can be upheld in a court in order for us to enforce it within the city. So I believe that I'm giving a long answer to a question that I can directly answer with, yes, there is a process for a citizens initiative. And that can ultimately get a new ordinance on the books, but there just has to be assurances that is also something that can be upheld in court and follow state and federal laws.
I know that. Thank you. One really quick question. Do you not have to vote on item number 2? Item number 2 being the one that was just spoken about. The ordinance. Can you hear me? Hello? Thank you. I'm done.